The last time that, towards the end of 19, we had the announcement of the corporate tax cut, and that was significant. That was something that India Inc. cheered. Post that, we haven't really seen any significant announcement on that front. Is there something that can be tinkered with, or that you feel could come even between budgets over the next year or so?
See, I think on private investment, I think corporate taxes have been cut. They've been fine. I think the real problem in private investment is what we call, is the software of policy making. I think, is there a climate for private investment or not? I think that's the bigger question the government needs to ask itself. You know, if you look at the last several years, apart from a few firms, does the rest of the private sector really feel confident, both domestic, not just foreign, but also domestic private sector? I mean, do they feel confident about, regulation, about level playing fields, about, payments being made on time, about, non-arbitrary decision making? This is what we call the software of economic policy making. That's what's important for private investment. I think the corporate taxes have been done, but it's the broader issue of, regulatory certainty. It's those things that I think have affected private investment deeply. So that's not a matter of the budget. That's not a matter of corporate tax rates which have been done. I mean, the government really seriously needs to think about, what is it about the environment that is still not attracting private investment, both foreign and domestic. And I think that's what I think is the bigger issue for reviving private investment.
All right, that was actually a really good point. Dr. Subramanian, in terms of the divestment agenda, must get your take on that as well. Don't seem to have factored in BPCL. Of course, the Big Bang LIC IPO is expected, and a whole slate of other issues this year. The disinvestment target, again, conservative, achievable. How would you rate it?
See, I think this is one of the things, coming back to the point I made earlier. I mean, in the past, we routinely had absurd targets and we underperformed, right? I think that's why I think the finance ministry deserves a lot of credit by saying, look, you see, I think that the broader, what I find, mature about this and actually politically very savvy is that you under promise and over deliver rather than overhype and consistently don't deliver. I think so in that sense. I think first of all, let's also give the government credit for Air India. I think it was had been talked about. I think the government deserves a lot of credit for doing that. If LIC goes through, I think that'll be terrific. I think because remember, LIC is something that matters. To be honest, Air India, I mean, the point was privatizing Air India is not going to revolutionize the airline industry. The airline industry passed by Air India 25, 30 years ago. Air India privatization was good because it stopped the bleeding, as it were. It was like get this off our hands. It's bleeding. It's not because it's going to, India's airline industry is going to now take off because of Air India. But in the case of LIC, I think LIC is a very important player. And, if we get the privatization, maybe, its profitability, the way it does business, corporate governance, disclosure, all of these things will improve. And I think that's a good sign. And I would, if that happens, it would be very good. And going forward, obviously there are things that need to be done. BPCL you mentioned. I would still hope that one or two public sector banks will be, because again, I want to come back to the point that privatization has two purposes, right? One is to stop the bleeding. You want to do that, and I think that's one purpose. Or augment some revenue, either prevent losses or provide some revenue. And the other thing is to actually affect the industry, make it better, operate better. And there, I think the really big players really are in the financial sector. I mean, they matter. In other areas, they matter less and less for the operation of the economy. But in the case of the financial sector, they do matter. And so if you think that privatization is also a tool for efficiency, I think LIC and the public sector banks would be, I think, for me, important targets for any privatization going forward.